Welcome to Straight from the Source from FMOL Health. Here, healthcare is a verb. It's how we show up every day, boldly, joyfully, and with great love. When severe weather is on the horizon, most of us prepare to stay home, but hospitals prepare to stay open. In this episode, we're taking you behind the scenes to learn what it takes to keep healthcare running when communities come to a standstill. We'll hear firsthand stories from the historic winter ice storm that shut down Monroe, then shift to hurricane season to explore how FMOL Health prepares long before a storm arrives. Because when every minute matters, preparation makes all the difference. Well, welcome, Dr. Gullatt, Kayla, Kevin. Thank you so much for being here. I just want to start with y'all telling everybody who you are, a little bit about your careers, and how you made it here to St. Francis.
Great. I'm Dr. Tom Gullatt. I am a pulmonary critical care physician. I grew up in South Louisiana, in a little town called Plaquemine. I came actually to college here in Monroe, did my medical school training over in Shreveport, and then came back to Monroe in 1989 to begin private practice. Got on staff at St. Francis at that time, did private practice for 15 years, came on to St. Francis as an employee to begin the hospitalist and intensivist programs, and then about 6 years ago moved down into administration as chief medical officer for 2 years, and now function as CEO and market president for St. Francis.
A lot of different roles.
Yes.
What about you, Kayla?
So I'm Kayla Johnson. I'm the chief nurse here at St. Francis. I started my nursing career in 1983 here at St. Francis in the pediatric intensive care, and worked here until 89, left for about 9 years, moved to New Orleans, opened up a pediatric intensive care, ER, and pediatric floor at one of the hospitals in New Orleans, and then came back to Monroe in 1998 as the director of Women's and Children's. From there, as you go up the chain in nursing administration, you start taking on different roles. I became the CNO about 8 years ago and have been functioning in this role for that long.
And we're glad you're here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And what about you, Kevin?
My name's Kevin Sale. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here and the newest member to this team. I've been with FMOL for 2 years now. I originally came from Virginia, but I started my career as a paramedic. I volunteered as a paramedic for about 10 years in my hometown and always loved serving our communities that I lived in. And I came to St. Francis and talked to these great people here and the community here and found that this was more of a mission and not just a mission statement on a website. And that's really what drew me to St. Francis, to be able to serve this community.
Yeah. What do y'all think has kept you here for so long?
I think that it is the fact that we are a faith-based institution, and that I believe that it is, as Kevin said, more than just a statement. It's a belief and it's a culture. And that while we're not perfect, we do everything we can to serve the people of this region and to reflect the mission and our Lord and Savior to them. And so it really is more than just a job.
Well, through all of your roles, varied as they are, you have seen a lot of emergencies, whether that's within the hospital, within the community. And so this episode is all about how hospitals and our health system really prepare for those emergencies to be that service to the community. So tell me a little bit about how you prepare. How do we get ready for the inevitable, whether it's weather-related, pandemic-related, chemical, oil, whatever it may be? How do we prepare for emergencies?
I think that one of the biggest things is that everyone prepares in advance, and we prepare both as an institution and as a system. We have policies, procedures, protocols in place to deal with emergencies, whether it's a weather event, whether it's a pandemic, whether it's something acute in the community that's occurred. There are practice sessions with community-wide disaster drills, but we rely on the policies, the procedures that are in place. We function as a team with everyone taking on responsibility and accountability. And then we try to meet frequently and communicate when those needs and occasions arise that we have to put the policies and procedures into play.
Yeah. I think I hope the community finds a lot of solace in how much we do prepare and how much we ready ourselves for times when we may be the only things open in the community or the only things available to people. And so we recently had one of those events in this area, a big ice storm, which in Louisiana doesn't sound very common, and it isn't, but it does happen. But this one seemed to be a little bit of a bigger issue. And so before we get into the storm itself, Kayla, tell me, what was it like watching the forecast develop, realizing this could be something Monroe had never experienced before?
So again, Kevin always keeps us abreast of the weather and tracking it. And so we knew that there was high potential that it was coming to us. Mm-hmm. And we did not know to what extent, but we started preparing. Again, as Dr. Gullatt said, we have policies, procedures that we follow. We have teams. We start preparing for who's going to, as we call, hunker down and be here as leadership at the hospital when these things occur, so that, you don't just have those boots on the ground that make things happen at the bedside, whether it's physician, nurses, radiology, lab, etc., but that you have leadership that's here to support them. Yeah. So we as an executive team planned ahead to make sure who would be present when the storm occurred. But Kevin kept us well informed with what it looked like related to how much ice we would get, the worst it could be, the best it could be, when it would start, those types of things. So we all communicate very well, but he was the one that kept us informed.
Well, Kevin, talk me through those days. What did you do? What did you think about? What did you prepare for before the first ice fell? What were those plans you're putting in place?
As Kayla mentioned, we came together several days prior to the start of the storm. I think it was scheduled to hit us around the 23rd of January, and we started probably about a week before then because we started hearing about this. And we used our team members here that have been here for quite a long time to understand where some of our challenges may be and work through those challenges and that historical issues that we've had to make sure that we were putting things in place for what could happen from this. But we did, as Kayla said, we looked at the storm. We looked at the weather patterns. We have great resources in the Northeast of Louisiana that helps us see this information. And we were preparing for about a half-inch ice was the last amount that I recall that we were going to see. So just getting the team members together was really what helped us coordinate efficiently.
The other thing is we work very closely with Acadian Ambulance Service because, again, they're our primary provider that brings, whether it's by air or whether it's by, truck, those patients to us, as well as take those patients out of here from us. And so we coordinate very closely with them. LEARN is also a Louisiana emergency network that we coordinate with. When you have sick patients, don't just stop when you have ice. And so we had to be prepared of, those things that we could do or could not do here at St. Francis, and what would we do in those situations.
I think we benefited this time since I've lived in Northeast Louisiana. I would say we've had 3 major snow and or ice events. The first time I was not a part of administration, so at that point I was worried about my own family and own situation. The second one occurred after I became CMO, and we didn't have as much lead time and as much prep time as we did with this one. So the problems ended up being different. At that point, we were worried about food sources and supplies because it hit us really quick. And as you mentioned before, we were one of the only places open. And thank goodness that we function as a team. Someone had contacts with the local school system because they had food supplies. Schools were closed and they were going to ruin. So everyone pulls together and acts as a team. This time we had more advanced planning. We were well stocked on water, well stocked on food, but the event was more severe even than had been predicted. So in the last 48 hours prior to the event actually hitting us, system kicked in. We had system calls, made sure we had the supplies we need, talked about when do you call the code grays, etc., so that you have workforce here available. And it was really a team effort, both with the folks here, the system folks that helped us, and it was a great collaborative to get through a difficult time.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of the storm itself, when Monroe and the area really came to a standstill, what became your biggest priorities? And you can get as specific as you want. Like you mentioned food, water, whatever it may be. What became your biggest priorities once the storm hit?
In the last 24 hours prior to the storm hitting, one of the biggest things that we had to do was to try to empty as many beds as was safe and able to be done, because we knew nursing homes, we serve a rural area where folks would have to travel long distances to get back to their own homes. We knew once it hit, we would be holding people for an extended period of time. So first priority was to get folks that could go home back to their own home environment, so we would have bed availability for folks to come in and stay. So that was a really big thing. Mm-hmm. Second, it has to always be about the patients. But for you to care for patients, you have to have a workforce here that's able to meet their needs and serve them. So calling the code gray, having our workers come in and stay. Kayla's team, plants and facilities, are instrumental in running that side of the service, putting out cots, identifying rooms, identifying any vacant areas that could house our team members. And then Kayla and her team, she was up here for, I think, 92 hours, dispersing beds, changing out linens, and making sure that system flowed as smoothly as possible. The plants and facilities folks were up here making sure boilers kept running. And like I said, we really did run into some unexpected difficulties because of the severity of this storm with all the water issues that we ran into. And I think that was the first time we had experienced that. So it was a new challenge that folks had to rise up and meet, and they did wonderfully.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned Code Gray. And so for people who may not be familiar, a lot of these preps and plans and policies are related to these codes we call, and Code Gray is our severe weather code. And the moment that's called, the dominoes begin to fall, and all of the resources and additional needs start to go into play. And so I want to talk to kind of about the clinical care, Kayla. And while all of this operational work is happening, your team still has to take care of patients. So tell me about that experience of your nurses, of your clinical care teams that were still taking care of people who were very sick while a lot of this was swirling around them.
So, when you become a nurse and your primary focus is the patient, and honestly, that is what staff does in a disaster like that. You come to work and you plan on taking care of the patients. And that's what they did. Now, behind the scenes, as Dr. Gullatt said, we were making sure that when that staff got off work, that they would then have a place to sleep, that they would have food to eat, so that then they would be ready to come back the next day for their shift. Yeah. So there was a lot going on behind the scenes, but the staff actually did what they always do, which is focus on the patients, whether it's in the emergency room, whether it's in the ICU or on the floors, they were taking care of the patients. The cool thing about it is nursing is a team sport, whether it's, not just amongst nursing and CNAs, but lab, radiology, everybody pulls together all the time. And that's what you continue to do, even more so, when you've got something like that going on. So patient care, as Dr. Gullatt said, was our priority. But then those of us that were here, we also made sure that those staff were taken care of so that when they got off of their shift, they had linens, they had a place to lay their head, and they also had a hot meal. Yeah. So,
is there a story that sticks out to you from your care team during that time of someone maybe going above and beyond, or just kind of standing out as someone, a shining example of our mission?
So, what's cool about St. Francis is us being faith-based, and, there was situations we'd walk up on and staff was praying with their patients, because the patients weren't just worried about themselves. Yeah. They were worried about what was going on at their own homes. Yeah. So there was a lot of prayer taking place, but that's not anything different than what our staff does now. I mean, we had a nurse that, as a patient was passing, that sang "Jesus Loves Me" as he was passing. I mean, there's things like that happen on a daily basis when you work for a faith-based facility. And so the other big thing is that once we knew the patients that were here and it was time for them to go home, the difference with St. Francis is we didn't just discharge them. When they were on oxygen and they didn't have electricity, we continued to care for those patients because, again, in our mission statement, you take care of those most in need. We had a lot of patients then at that point in time in the rural areas that couldn't get back. They didn't have a house to go to that had electricity or that could have the oxygen that they needed to provide, for that patient. So we kept those patients here until we could discharge them to a safe place. Yeah. So
you're going to make me cry. That's beautiful. What about you, Dr. Gullatt? Anything that stuck out to you during the storm?
Well, I think we also need to have the perspective of those team members who spent 72, sometimes longer than that, here with us in the hospital. Most of them had a home and a family that they were worried about too. That, a lot of folks didn't have power for an entire week. We went through 48, 60 hours without, city water supply here to the hospital. And those same things were happening in our team members' homes. And so just can't say enough about the sacrifices that they make to be up here taking care of the patients, serving the mission, while still being anxious and worried about what's happening at their own home.
What about you, Kevin? What stood out?
Well, Dr. Gullatt already talked about Kayla's time up here, and she, as you asked that question, she is the hero in my mind. Kayla did not have to be here 90-some hours. She could have gone to her home or to a family home, and as a CNO leader here, she took the opportunity to lead up front and not standing over top. But there are several others that have just really gone above and beyond, making sure that we had water supply, we had the oxygen for our patients, we had oxygen, we had to get oxygen concentrators because we felt like our small cylinders were running low. So multiple people, multiple team members came together to make sure that our community was well cared for.
So I'll go back to you, Kevin. What lessons do you think the medical center really learned from this experience? And maybe kind of specifics about, we always want to have more oxygen on hand, or we want to always have a certain amount of food supply. What are some operational lessons we learned to prepare for the next one?
So coming from Virginia, I now have realized that we don't have snow plows in Louisiana. So, understanding the needs of our team members here to get here was a learning thing for me, because I hadn't seen that to this magnitude before. But probably the thing that we were a little prepared for, but not prepared for the scale that we saw, it was our water. And so the city was not able to keep up with the water. They had a water main break or something to that fact. And we were prepared just slightly with one water truck on site before the storm hit. We expected that water pressure would be low, but not that we would be without water. So we quickly pivoted to add additional water trucks to supply all of our hospital. We are now completely able to supply our water without the city supply coming to us. And we leaned very heavily on our friends at St. Dom's as well. We contacted St. Dom's because they've gone through some water issues in their past. And so we relied on their experience to make sure that we were going to be well taken care of. So that's probably the two couple things that I learned from this and that we've now prepared differently for.
What about you, Kayla? What about your clinical team? What have you learned from this that could help prepare them for the next one?
So I think that we have more precisely defined, because when you start getting into 96 hours and you get greater than, people are fatigued. And as Dr. Gullatt said, they need to be able to check on their own families. We had 3 guys that work for us here at St. Francis. And I would be remiss not to say that John Hughes, Brett Rochelle, and Leo Norwood have 4-wheel drive trucks. They started going and getting staff so that we could then switch out some staff. So to have truly defined way of getting staff to and from home so that we can switch out from a team A to a team B after you get into a longer event is something that we have talked about in detail, since that happened. But again, these guys drove on the treacherous roads. Now they had appropriate trucks and all that, but they got staff once we needed to switch out some staff that felt like they needed to go home, that they made sure that happened. So we've looked very strongly at Team A and Team B and how that would work when you get into an extended period of time.
Yeah. One of my favorite parts of our mission statement, and you mentioned the second half of this, my favorite part, but we take care of each other and those most in need. And the each other part is what's standing out to me here. The team members, we're going to take care of each other and make sure our team is okay as well as our patients. That's beautiful.
Well, and as we all, Kevin can talk about the people that stayed with him, but I have 2 senior directors that stayed up here with me, Krista Lewis over Women's and Children's, that wanted to make sure that those things were running well. And then Lee Story, who's over all of Med-Surg Tele. And then again, John, who's over the ICUs. He was the one that was helping get staff back and forth. And then Teresa Daniel, who's over the ER, she stayed up here the whole time. So, we knew that we needed to be here for the staff because it was really those staff that were taking care of our patients. So
John really did go above and beyond. When she said John's name, it made me think of a story. He had to climb a fence to get someone out of their fence to get them here. It was a 6-foot fence that he had to scale. He came back soaking wet, but went home, took a shower, changed his clothes, got right back out there for us.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. The other thing is that, and you may want to speak to it, but our employee engagement around St. Francis under Dr. Gullatt's leadership is sky high. It's very high. You want to tell them how high?
I think 96% participation rate. I think 98th percentile amongst healthcare workers for engagement itself. So
incredible.
So with that speaks to our team and that speaks to his leadership. But again, what that means is that when you're not in a crisis, you work very well together. But what it also speaks to is that when you are in a crisis, then everybody rallies and everybody works really well together. So I think that speaks to the engagement here at St. Francis, that no matter what we're in, disaster or not, that the engagement scores will tell you that we as a leadership team executive team work very closely together, and that permeates down to our team members. And that's something that, I feel like that we are all very proud of, because that's what makes anything work, is when you can work together.
To that point, why do you think that is? How do you lead this team in a way that the engagement is high when things are good, but the engagement is also high when things are hard?
I will say that I think that FMOL has a great culture and a great mission, but we take a lot of pride here at St. Francis that this ministry began here. And actually today is our 113th anniversary or birthday of the start of this mission. And so we take a lot of pride in that. We talk about it a lot, that it all started here. And frankly, we've been sort of in a continuous crisis for the last 2.5 years because of the acute changes in our market with the deterioration of other hospitals in our area. We've all had to pull together to get through that. And it truly is a team effort. And we have executives who are really focused on being out there, talking to team members, meeting them where they are. And so I think the culture of having to pull together for 2.5 years to meet the challenges that the volume that's been coming to us have created, then to be able to land on the foundation of the mission, vision, and values that the sisters have given us. And we try to live it every day. And then when it becomes a crisis, people pull together rather than push apart. And like I said, I've got a great executive team and leadership, and then the team members. Everybody does, I think, feel that they are part of something special. And when you feel like you're part of something special, you want to succeed, and you want to take care of the people of our region and community. And I think, like I said, it certainly is a job, but I think for a lot of folks in this institution, it's a calling.
Yeah. And when you practice that calling every day, when a crisis hits, it doesn't change. The calling remains the same. That's beautiful. Well, speaking of our mission, joyfulness of spirit is a big part of that. And that's finding or creating joy in everyday moments. What's something that you saw this winter during the ice storm that brought you joy?
Honestly, just the feeling as it was coming to an end that we had met the challenge, that we had some curveballs thrown at us, particularly with the water situation, and that everyone had gotten through it, had excelled, succeeded, cared for the patients, cared for the team members, and then it was such a happy time to see the ice fade and melt, and for business to return more to normal. But frankly, it continued for weeks because individuals in rural areas didn't have power. They couldn't go home. We had clinics in rural areas that parking lots remained frozen for several days. Some of them didn't have power for several days. So it was really a lengthy series of challenges, and just the feeling of success when it finally ended.
Yeah. What about you?
So when you were talking about, what created joy, I think back to when we were here, people looked at it when they got off their shift like a pallet party. I mean, you would think when they were coming to get their assignments to sleep, it was like they were excited because they were, getting to stay in the room with
Kind of an adventure.
Yes, that's right, with their coworkers. One day, actually Melissa Macaluso, who is over our volunteers and stuff, she called me and she said, Kayla, I have dill pickles. And I'm like, dill pickles? Y'all, she brought me about 300 huge dill pickles. And I made an announcement overhead about dill pickles, free dill pickles in room 554. You would have thought I was giving away gold nuggets. Yes. People came out of, I had no dill pickles left.
Oh my goodness.
That people came for getting dill pickles. I mean, it was just things like that you saw true joyfulness of spirit, you know, really not thinking about what was going on outside, but making the most of what they were dealing with on the inside. So it was cool stuff like that, you know, when you were assigning rooms and in a lot of rooms, there was 2 people to a room and sometimes they didn't know each other, you know, but yet it didn't matter. It was fine, you know, that kind of thing. So it was just a lot of joyfulness of spirit that was going on within the walls of St. Francis, even if it was just over dill pickles.
That's amazing. I love that story. It's the small moments,
yes,
for sure.
For sure.
What about you, Kevin?
So just looking back at how each person performed above and beyond in their job, looking back at how we were able to clear a helipad of 4 inches of ice so that a helicopter could land. That brings me the joy looking at what the team accomplished during that time. Without further incident, like we didn't cause any harm. We were just fixing the issue that Mother Nature gave us. And it really made me feel good at seeing people step up and take leadership roles, even if they weren't a leader, to make sure that we were all taken care of and our patients were taken care of.
Yeah. Well, the leadership that you mentioned, it shines through in all of you. And I know that St. Francis is well prepared for whatever may come. And so thank you for your time today and for the work you've done for our system.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Monroe ice storm was an extraordinary event, but in Louisiana, the weather challenge we're most familiar with is hurricanes. Long before the first storm enters the Gulf, teams at Our Lady of the Lake are already planning. Facilities Director Shamika Hill takes us behind the scenes of hurricane preparedness. Well, welcome, Shamika. We're so glad you're here. Why don't we just get started? Tell us a little bit about yourself, your career, and how you came to the lake.
Okay. I'm Shamika Hill. I am the Director of Facilities for Our Lady of the Lake main campus. I am an electrician and welder by trade, believe it or not. I started out as a welder and then swapped to an electrician. Mm-hmm. I started working for the lake as an electrician 15 years ago.
Wow.
And I just continued to grow within the organization, within my department. So I became a coordinator and then a supervisor and then a manager. And now I am the director.
Congratulations.
Thank
what a
you.
Journey. What do you think has kept you at the lake for so long?
It's a ministry for me, really. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. But what we do in facilities, it is a ministry all by itself. We keep people alive by keeping the lights on, by keeping the water running. Mm-hmm. So if you look at it like a ministry, you never work a day in your life. You just go and do what needs to be done.
I love that. And I think it speaks to how in our health system, every role plays a part, whether you're at the bedside or changing light bulbs or mopping or doing podcasts, you're all doing something that supports the patient.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, one thing we experience in Louisiana and Mississippi often is hurricanes. And so today we're talking a little bit about emergency preparedness and your role in that and how our health system prepares for things like this. And so what does hurricane preparedness look like inside the hospital?
So first we look at the generators. So we have diesel generators that control the hospital. So we make sure that they are preventive maintenance, that they're running in good condition. We make sure that they're full of diesel. At the beginning of the hurricane season, we verify all of those things. We get plywood, generators. We have air mattresses because facilities controls the air mattresses. We have spill kits, water booms. We even have stuff for ice. So just in case we get a little hail or whatever, we have that as well. And we have portable air handling units as well, just in case the AC goes out. So we prepare year round actually for hurricane season. I try to keep inventory because it's not just hurricane. We may have a storm.
Yeah.
And we may have wind, rain, we may have a flood. So we try to stay prepared year round. And then for hurricane, we just bulk up just in case. So we make sure we have 96 hours worth of emergency supplies, diesel, water, and anything else that may generate and pop up during that time.
What may surprise people about the prep that you do?
We always think we have enough. And sometimes we don't, and sometimes we're rushing to get it. Example would be air mattresses. So we have 500 air mattresses, but usually we always have to order 200 more. So we're running to Walmart or we're running to another store right before just to have enough air mattresses to make sure. So we do a count, but you never know what, how many people are going to be there, how many employees are going to be there. And then we may have a new building that they say, hey, we're going to stay. We need this many air mattresses. So we stay prepared as far as we can. And then when we can't, we make sure 3 days before that we end up getting enough for everything. So I think that's the biggest thing that people don't understand. We're prepared, but if we're not prepared, we make sure we're ready to be. We're all ready when the storm hits.
Well, and I think that speaks to kind of what we talk about, the system supporting each other. If one market is in need, we have a whole health system that can send air mattresses or water or whatever, diesel, whatever it may be from other markets to support whichever market is in need.
Yeah, we're not on an island. That's the best part. Yeah. And then before the storm, we always talk to Monroe and we talk to Lafayette just to make sure that everybody's on the same page and can assist if needed as well.
Yeah. Well, so a lot of prep happens year round, but talk me through kind of maybe, we know a hurricane is coming. Talk me through kind of the role your department plays right before a storm, during a storm, and then maybe post-storm.
Okay. So before the storm, we check our activation and recovery. So I know who's going to be here. I know who's not going to be there. We actually start before they call the code gray. So if they call the code because the storm's going to hit Tuesday, facilities actually start staying Monday. So Monday we'll go on the roofs. We'll check and make sure everything's tied down. We'll check all the roof drains. We'll check all the drains in the ground to make sure everything, water can flow. We would go out and put sandbags. We pack the sandbags as well. They'll go around that night before and make sure all the buildings are locked up, make sure we have sandbags out. If there are people staying at the building, we go and make sure they have everything that they need just in case we cannot go to them. We cut down any limbs, any trees that may be in the way that could fall possibly during the storm. We hand out air mattresses. I know it sounds weird, but we put paper on the windows for people for sleeping, because a lot of nurses and doctors will stay. So we'll go put paper on the windows just to give them some privacy while they're there. We also get gallons of water. We have that in stock. We get all that delivered in the day before. So we, all that is in our shop. Chainsaws, we have the 2x4s, we have plywood, anything that we would need, we bring it all down to the shop and we have it readily available. We have a generator vendor that comes, so they'll spend the night with us the whole time. The groundskeepers spend the night with us the whole time. And then we also have remediation company and electricians. So we get all of them into the shop and they all stay with us the whole time during the storm.
So you're even bringing in external vendors who would need to help repair things if something went wrong. That's great.
Yeah. So like the last storm, the generator, I think at St. E went out. So we were able to send the electrician out to fix the generator in the middle of the storm. So then they were able to still function while we were down for the storm, and nobody knew. We were just doing what we had to do.
That's probably what you want your job always to be, like no one knows anything is wrong.
I say we're like ninjas. So we run in the back and we get it fixed, and then we go back.
What about during the storm? What are you kind of looking out for? What are you watching for?
We're looking for flooding. We're looking for leaks. We're looking for tree limbs down, broken windows and stuff like that. So my offsite guys usually will go out when it's safe, and they'll go into their offsite facilities and make sure we don't need to call anybody else in. We also have an energy contact that we can contact directly. So he's in communication with us constantly during the storm. If we lose power to any of our buildings, he's aware so that when the storm passes, they can come immediately and get our power restored if need be.
Yeah. And then once they all clear, what happens after? How do we clean up and how do we move on?
Okay. So then we swap shifts. So my activation team gets to go home. And then the recovery team comes and they do a basic cleanup. So any air mattresses that we put out, any bags, sandbags that we put out, any limbs, leaves, anything like that, we go out and we clean up and get everything ready to go back to business as normal within the next 2 days.
Well, most of us don't start thinking about hurricane prep until maybe May, maybe a little bit into June. But hospitals can't wait that long. So when does hurricane prep start for your team?
January.
I love to hear that.
Yes, January. We start looking at what we're going to do. What does my team look like? Am I going to be shorthanded? Do I need to get more people in? What do we have in inventory that we did not use from last year? Is there anything that I need to get rid of that expired from the year before? Water, anything like that. Generators, our portable generators, they have to be PM'd. So we try to do it all before hurricanes because, of course, it could be something other than a hurricane that can affect us. So if we're ready for hurricanes, I'm ready for anything else as well. So we start in January.
Well, and what about, so the lake, just like most of our hospitals in our health system serve as one of the largest, if not the largest hospital in that area. And so during storms, whether it's hurricane, ice, flooding, we serve as kind of a go-to resource for outlying parishes, counties to send patients. How do you prep for maybe a surge in patients, a surge in team members, kind of the extra people that may be on campus?
We actually have a meeting before to talk about the surge of employees being on campus. And then that's how we make sure we have enough air mattresses and enough space. So we do space planning before. We know certain suites in the MOB that we will be able to send employees to sleep. We have certain units within the hospital that you can pull places and say, okay, we could put 3 air mattresses here. We can do this and we can do that. So we actually have a meeting, an emergency preparedness meeting before and go over, hey, this failed last time. Let's do better this time. How can we do better? So that's one of the things that we do to make sure that we're ready. As far as the patients, I know that just from the meetings, they try to release any patients that they can. And so we try to keep all the rooms prepped and ready to go. So if there's not a patient, we'll go in, we'll make sure the call cords, the TVs, the toilets are flushing, the shower is working before that. So if we get a surge during the storm and we may be working, on a roof or something in the middle of the storm because I have a roof leak or something like that, the rooms are always ready for the patient.
Well, you mentioned kind of the generators and things like that. What other infrastructure investments or systems has the hospital invested in to make the buildings more safe and more resilient?
So during construction, we always we look at the whole scope. So if you look at HVI Tower, the windows, they're made to be able to sustain winds, hurricane winds. So it starts with construction. So as we go through construction, we look at, well, what side of the building is this on? If we get, 125 speed of wind, will these sustain during the storm? So it starts there. And actually the main campus, we have five natural gas generators, 1750s that control the hospital. So it looks like it will on a normal day. So when we lose power during the storm, nobody really knows we lost power during the storm until we tell them. We also look at the height of the building. Are we in the flood zone? Do we have certain areas that flood? So, and if we do, we try to raise that up before hurricane season. We always get a survey, say, okay, hey, we're in a 100-year flood zone. So we need to start working on getting this this area of the hospital raised up so we do not have those issues. We also put in backup water sources. So if we were to lose water during the storm, we can call in 18-wheelers full of water and we could still function as a hospital doing that as well. So it's more than just wind and rain. We can also lose water during the storm. And a lot of times people don't think about that. Like, what do we do if we lose water? You know, how do you flush the toilets? It takes 4 gallons of water, don't ask me how I know, to flush a toilet when we don't have water.
4 gallons or 40?
4.
4 gallons of water to flush one toilet.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Yep. So now we've got that backup to where we don't have to worry about having to go use gallons of water to flush the toilet.
How many toilets do you think we have at the main hospital?
We have around 1,500 just at the main campus.
If there was one misconception people might have about how hospitals prep for storms, disasters, what do you think that is? And what would you like to say about that?
I think the misconception is that we're selfish and that we are only looking out for our own self and our own well-being. As a whole, like, you know, you have different ministries and we're only saying, oh, I'm worried about my campus. This is my campus. This is Our Lady of the Lake. But we look at it as a whole, as a mission, where if another hospital, say Lourdes or, you know, another health system, if they needed help, like Lake Charles, when Lake Charles had the hurricane and they had to shut down one of their hospitals, we were able to receive some of their patients because that's our ministry, that's our mission. So it's not about a title or a name when it comes to hurricane preparedness. It is about what can we do to help the community and fulfill the mission and the calling that we have been called to do. You know, I wouldn't turn down somebody because they needed gallons of water because, you know, well, you're not in Baton Rouge, you're in another market. No, whatever you need, you call, we're going to make sure you get it. If we have to drive right after the storm 2 hours, we're going to make sure you get what you need.
I love that. Well, and I can tell that you really care about your job and your people. And you know our mission as well as anybody, but joyfulness of spirit is a big part of our core values. And so we ask all of our guests, what is bringing you joy lately?
Honestly, what has brought me joy lately is realizing that pain doesn't necessarily mean that you're suffering. You know, it's a song that says your life's not falling apart, it's falling into place. So even in our pain, we're falling into place. And we should rejoice in that.
It's beautiful. I love that. And across our health system, we do all things with great love. And I can see the love that you have for your work and what you're doing. What's something you've seen at FMOL Health recently?
Well, it'd be the backpack buddies. That's the thing that we're working on now. Helping families that can't afford to get their kids backpacks, you know, and to be able to come together as an organization and say, hey, we're going to adopt this family for school and help them get what the kids need for school. That's the most recent thing. And it's continuous. It's not just, you know, that one thing. Example would be, I could give you an example from my department. One of our team members has cancer. So we decided to do a fundraiser for him, a dinner. And he raised around $4,000 just from the lunch that our department did for him. And he needed it because he hadn't got paid.
That's a beautiful example of, in our mission statement, when we say we take care of each other and the communities we serve. And that's why I really wanted to do this episode, because storms and hurricanes affect all of our communities, but it's really the people behind the prep that are taking care of each other in those stressful times, as well as thinking about the communities we're taking care of. And your light shines so bright in that space. And so thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Is there anything else you'd like to say or cover about your work here?
It has been a joy and a blessing to be able to be in an organization like this that truly cares about the community and their workers. And it's not all about the money. It's not all about a name, but it's about doing what we've been called to do.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you again for joining us, Dr. Gullatt, Kevin, Kayla, and Shamika. And to our audience, thanks for tuning in. We'll have helpful resources linked in the show notes. And we'll be back soon with more episodes of Straight from the Source, a podcast from FMOL Health. If you have ideas or topics you'd like to hear on the show, email us at podcast@fmolhs.org.